Check, check. The Daily Reflections for July 16th. A measure of humility. In every case, pain had been the price of admission into a new life. But this admission price had purchased more than we expected. It brought a measure of humility, which we soon discovered to be a healer of pain. That's pretty good. 12 and 12, page 75. It was painful to give up trying to control my life, even though success eluded me. And when life got too rough, I drank to escape. Accepting life on life's terms will be mastered through the humility I experienced when I turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. With my life in God's care, fear, uncertainty, and anger are no longer my response to those portions of my life that I would rather not have happen to me. The pain of living through these times will be healed by the knowledge that I have received the spiritual strength to survive. Ooh. Good one. They're almost always awesome, but I like humility. A lot of humble and pride talk in the 7th month of the year. In every case, pain had been the price of admission into a new life. But this admission price had purchased more than we expected. It brought a measure of humility, which we soon discovered to be a healer of pain. The first time you put your hand on a hot stove, generally speaking, you'll probably only do that once. Why? Well, because there's a lot of pain. We don't want to repeat that. The interesting thing about being a drunk, though, is that despite all the pain that we have, or that I had, I still kept going back to it. There's a cool part in the big book about the jaywalker who just got a big kick out of jaywalking all the time. And even though he kept getting hurt, hit by cars, breaking bones, going to the hospital, coming out, he still wanted to do that. He still wanted to get his kicks out of jaywalking off of across Route 66. Just kidding. Bad joke. Are we recording? Finally got my new glasses in, so I don't have to be resentful anymore. It's interesting because, well, pain has humbled me. It's always in hindsight, it seems like. It's always, I can look back. And so when I was first trying to get sober in Pensacola in, I guess it was 2003 or 2004, 2003 I think is when it started. I had a ton of pain. Physical, but mostly emotional, and then really spiritual pain, which I didn't understand was spiritual pain at the time. I can look back at that and know that I was in a great deal of pain, and know that all those behaviors and circumstances coalesced into me hitting bottom, I guess, or having the gift of desperation. So I can look back on that in hindsight and appreciate it for what it was. And if you've been in the rooms for any time at all, you always look at people and you hear the same stories. I got a DUI. I went to jail for this. My family broke up. I got a divorce. And then about a year later, if they get sober, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I've talked about it on these before and in meetings that for whatever reason, a switch went off in my brain. I don't know. It was over. I know when it was. It was Easter. We were driving out to my stepfather-in-law's house for Easter, and my wife is a therapist, and I asked her, why did a switch just go off in my brain? So I was asking her from a physiological, scientific, psychological perspective of when something that used to be abstract, but you were aware of it. So the abstract idea of difficult things lead to good things, or difficult things lead to long-lasting change, and not just an intellectual awareness that oh yeah, if I work out really hard and I sacrifice, then I'll be fit. But a instant switch to when I'm running, don't think that I run on a regular basis, but this is an example. When I'm running up a hill and my legs are fatigued and there's lactic acid buildup and I'm sweating and I'm breathing hard and it's very difficult and I want to quit. I still know though, if I get through this pain, it's going to lead to better things. If I, instead of watching Netflix, I journal or I read a book that, I'm trying to learn a new skill about, it's going to lead to good things. The book's not really a good analogy because that's not really painful. There was, I can't remember who it was, but not Scott Peterson. That was the guy that killed his wife. Gerald Peterson? Anyway, he's a controversial figure. He was a Canadian professor. And he was the guy, one of the guys that refused to say they, them and do like weird pronouns. And so anyway, he went on to create a career for himself in interviewing people and just writing books. He said that is most real is through the most difficult things that we can do. And that resonated with me because everything else is just kind of gravy. We don't learn from our successes. We learn from our failures. And we really learn from just getting our rear ends kicked. And it's kind of like the universe. I mean, I think it's hardwired into us humans and animals in general that, you push the boundaries with something until you get pain. So a pack of dogs, there's an alpha. And sometimes there's another dog that wants to be the alpha, and whoever wins that fight is the alpha, and the other dog falls into place and knows where he lies within the pecking order. That dog is humbled, but I would argue probably happier because he understands what his role is in the pack, and he's not the alpha. Anyway, it was painful to give up trying to control my life, even though success eluded me. And when life got too rough, I drank to escape. Escape. That's how you say that. Painful to give up trying to control my life. I had a bit of an opposite experience. So when I was hospitalized in Pensacola, 2003, I think it was, there was a weight that was lifted off of me because I didn't have to continue to try to live this, hide my shame of being a drunk. It was all out there. Everybody knew about it. Everybody knew at work that something happened and that I had problems and that I needed help. I did, however, drink to escape a perceived difficult life. Yesterday's daily reflections talked about perspective, and I had no perspective. So my difficult life was through my perspective, and it was a false one. Accepting life on life's terms will be mastered through the humility I experience when I turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. With my life in God's hands, fear, uncertainty, and anger are no longer my response to those portions of life that I would rather not have happen to me. This thing is stuck in my head, this concept of life is happening. It's not happening to me. It is just happening. And there's reality and beauty in not having to react to what is happening. And I kind of believe, and maybe this is painting with broad strokes, I kind of believe that if it is happening, then therefore it is God's will. And maybe God's will is to allow humans to have their own will, which leads to humans acting badly. Sounds like an old direct-to-DVD. Humans acting badly. Available on a 12 DVD set. And it's just people doing stupid stuff. I'll give one more example and then I gotta get to work. And what I do for work is make YouTube videos. And I started making YouTube videos because, well, I just took a chance. But going into it, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to work really hard at it. And then I'm going to leave the results up to God. Some people call it the universe because they don't like the God word. I don't have any issue with God word. Work really, really hard at something you think you should be doing and leave the results up to God. And then in 2 or 3 months, if you indeed worked hard and you can measure that there's a tangible amount of work that you've put into it, sit back and take inventory and ask yourself, have I gotten better at this? Has it helped other people in some way? And is it obvious that this is something I should continue doing? And that's what it really was on YouTube. I put out 4 or 5 videos a week, which was the same or more as other creators in my space. I kind of saw what they were doing that was successful, and I emulated that in my own style. And within 6 weeks, I had amassed 1,000 subscribers, which is atypical for a new YouTuber, which I didn't know. I just thought, okay, well, this is how it happens with everybody. Well, it turns out it doesn't happen with everybody. But that was an experience for me when I started the channel that I just trusted in God. I did the work, I prayed about it, and I left the results up to God. When I quit my job to pursue YouTube full time, that was more of a faith thing. But the evidence was there. Once I did inventory on everything, looked at the finances, the amount of time it would take, then it was obvious that this was the right choice. And if anything, it was irresponsible of me to continue on in my previous job for my family, from a financial standpoint, and from a sanity standpoint on my end. So I just put in the work. And here I am, about 3 years later, talking into a camera. I don't make any money from this channel, obviously. If you look at how many people viewed this video, it's probably 20. There was fear associated with starting a YouTube channel. There was uncertainty. But I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You put a few videos up, you take a chance, you do something, and then, you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I was talking to a friend of mine from high school last night, and one of my best friends is turning 50 in a couple of weeks. So I was trying to coordinate something with him so that we can go up and celebrate my buddy's birthday. They live up in Nebraska, so it's not like insignificant. It's not like me driving to town to have dinner, so there's plans involved. Anyway, we were talking about the channel, and he mentioned something about never being able to do something like that, or he was so risk adverse. And my comment to him was, if we're willing to take a step into the wilderness, then the universe has a tendency to tap us onto the right path. But you got to be willing, and you got to take a chance, and you got to explore. And most of the times, the things that I've set out with my strategy is changed along the way. But had I not gone through door number 1, I would not have known that I should have gone through door number 2, and that door number 1 led to door number 2 eventually. But if I just sat in the room and didn't open a door, then I would have never gotten to where I was supposed to get. Anyway, life isn't happening to me. Life is just happening. The pain of living through these times will be healed by the knowledge that I've received the spiritual strength to survive. Toolbox. I mean, this morning I woke up, did the serenity prayer. I'll pray that God's will would be done in a certain difficult situation. That situation seems to have been resolved yesterday. Was it resolved in the fashion that I wanted it to be? No. But it is at least resolved, and I can move on with my life. Yeah. So, if you're trying to get sober, go to a meeting, get a sponsor. If you are sober, go to a meeting and talk to your sponsor. Thanks for watching.